The large space station called Trinity's Grace floated quietly between the stars. It was a neutral place where humans and aliens could meet without war or fear. Inside, the main chamber was full of important leaders. The humans sat on one side, the aliens on the other. Between them was a long glass table, shining under soft blue lights. This day was special. After many years of small fights and mistrust, the two great species, humans and Zalari, were ready to talk about peace. Everyone was tense, watching, listening, waiting. The humans had sent their best diplomats. The Zalari had sent their ruler. Queen Arindra of XEL Aristot. Queen Arindra entered with grace. She was tall, with glowing silver skin, long dark hair, and deep green eyes that seemed to hold the whole galaxy. She wore a dark royal robe and moved like she owned the stars themselves. She didn't smile. She never did. The human leader, Ambassador Kale, stood and bowed politely. "Your Majesty," he said, "we are honored you came in person." "We hope today begins something new," Queen Arindra nodded once. Her voice was calm but cold. "Let us see if peace is more than a word," the talks began. People spoke about borders, space routes, trade, and the past. The Zalari officials used hard words and sharp questions. The humans answered with logic and hope. Hours passed, but both sides kept their calm. Then something strange happened. A young human officer, just an assistant, leaned over to whisper into Ambassador Kale's ear. No one else paid attention. The officer said, "Should I add Commander Orion Vale's name to the old scout mission records?" His name came up in the archives again. Ambassador Kale replied softly, "Yes, just include it for the record." But Queen Arindra heard the name. Her sharp hearing was stronger than most knew. Commander Orion Vale. The moment the name entered the air, she stopped speaking. She froze. Her hand, which was reaching for a data scroll, stopped in mid-air. Her green eyes widened slightly. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Everyone in the room noticed. Silence fell across the chamber. The Zalari ministers turned to look at their queen. The human diplomats grew quiet, confused by her sudden change. Queen Arindra stared at nothing. Her face, always calm and firm, now looked lost in time. A memory touched her mind like a quiet whisper. Her breathing slowed. Something was breaking behind her eyes. Finally, without any reason, she stood up and said, "This meeting is over." Everyone was shocked. Her guards stepped forward, unsure of what to do. One of her advisors whispered, "Your Majesty?" But she walked away without answering. Her long robe swept behind her like a shadow. Ambassador Kale stood too, his voice worried. "We meant no offense, Your Majesty." "What happened?" But the queen did not respond. She disappeared into the hallway, leaving silence behind her, inside. Her private chamber, Queen Arindra stood still, alone. The soundproof walls kept the outside world away. Slowly, she walked to her window and looked out at the stars. Her reflection stared back from the glass, but she did not see it. She whispered one name to herself, Orion. That name, that voice, that time 15 years ago. The memory was buried deep, hidden under layers of royal duty and time. But now, like an old star coming back to life, it began to shine again. Back then, she was not a queen. She was just Arindra, a royal princess visiting a small outpost near the edge of her empire. A human scout ship had crashed on Zalari ground. One survivor had been captured, a young human soldier. His name was Orion Vale. He was not like the others. He was curious, kind, and not afraid of her. Even as a prisoner, he had smiled, joked, and learned their language quickly. He had fixed their machines, helped their workers, and made her laugh, something she hadn't done in years. He had given her something once. A small chip with human music. It played soft sounds she had never heard before. Piano, he called it. She remembered the last night they met. He had said, "If you ever hear my name again, it means I never forgot." And then, he was gone, eh? Shuttle explosion, no body, only fire and dust. The report had said he was dead. She had cried alone, hidden from her people. Then she buried the memory, rose to power, and became the queen the galaxy feared. But now his name had returned. And with it the old pain. She walked to a drawer and opened it. Inside was the music chip, still safe, still there. She had never played it again. But now, with shaking fingers, she placed it into the player. Soft piano music filled the room. Her heart, hidden behind years of silence, began to feel again. 15 years ago, long before Queen Arindra sat on the throne of Zalaris, she was a young royal, curious, quiet, and full of questions. At that time, the galaxy was still wild, and contact between humans and Zalari was rare and uncertain. One evening, an emergency message came to the Zalari palace. A small human scout ship had crashed near the southern desert outpost. There were signs of life. The crew was gone, likely burned in the wreckage, but one person had survived. He was found unconscious, with broken armor and deep wounds. The guards tied his hands and carried him to the outpost medical station. There, the doctors healed him just enough to keep him alive. The survivor's name, taken from his broken ID chip, was Orion Vale. When Princess Arindra heard the news, she became curious. No humans had ever been captured alive before. Most were seen from a distance, fast ships, strange suits, voices through. Static, but now a real one had fallen into Zalari hands. Against her advisor's warning, she traveled to the outpost herself. The desert outpost was small and quiet. 2 towers, 1 landing pad, and a holding chamber below. Arindra wore a long, gray cloak, hiding her royal symbols. Only her guard captain and the outpost commander knew who she truly was inside the holding room. The human sat behind an energy barrier. He was weak but alert. His short brown hair was messy, and his right arm was wrapped in a silver healing cloth. His clothes were torn, but his eyes were sharp. He looked up as Arindra entered. "Another one?" He said, "Are you here to ask more questions I don't understand?" His voice was calm, not afraid. Arindra stepped forward. "No, I'm just here to see what a human really looks like." Orion raised an eyebrow. "And what do I look like?" She paused. "Strange. Small, but not as dangerous as they say." He smiled. "That's fair." Over the next few days, Arindra visited often. At first, she asked about Earth, about human customs, and why he came so far from his home. Orion explained that he was part of a deep space scout team searching for new routes and peaceful contact. His mission had been simple: explore and report. "I never wanted war," he said. "We were told the Zalari might be friendly. I guess that was half right." Arindra tilted her head. "We are not enemies, but we are not fools." Still, she found herself coming back to see him again. And again. They spoke about stars, about music, and about dreams. Orion was funny in a strange human way. He made jokes about space food and the smell of the desert. Arindra found herself smiling, then laughing softly at first, then more freely one evening. Orion asked, "You're not just a guard, are you?" She looked at him quietly. "You're someone important," he said. "I can tell." "The others listen to you?" "They bow when they think I'm not looking." Arindra didn't answer. But the next day she wore her royal sigil openly. "I am Princess Arindra of Zalaris," she said, "daughter of the High Queen." Orion gave a short nod. "Nice to meet you, Princess." She blinked. "That's it? No fear? No respect?" "I respect you," he said, "because you've been kind. Not because of your title." That answer stayed with her. One night she brought something with her, a silver star map, passed down from her ancestors. It showed old star paths made before warp drives. Arindra placed it between them. "This is my people's past," she said. Orion took out something too. A small square chip, smooth and black. "What is that?" she asked. "Music," he replied. "From Earth. I used to listen to it during long missions. It kept me from feeling alone." He handed it to her. "A gift. If you have a way to play it." Arindra nodded. "I do." They sat in silence after that. A warm silence, no fear. No walls, but peace never lasts long. The next day, orders came from the palace. The human was to be returned to Earth. A deal had been made, proof of good faith between the two species. A neutral ship would arrive soon to take him home. When Arindra told Orion, he looked surprised, then a little sad. "I thought maybe I'd stay a little longer," he said. She didn't reply. Her heart felt heavy. She had learned to hide emotions. Well, but this time she struggled. That night, they met one last time under the desert moons. "Will you forget me?" he asked. Arendra looked up at the sky. "No," Orion smiled. "If you ever hear my name again, it means I never forgot." She nodded. "And if I never do?" He looked into her eyes. "Then I'm lost forever." The next morning, a shuttle came to take him to the neutral ship. Arendra did not go to the pad. She watched from the tower window, but something went wrong. The shuttle exploded midair, flames, smoke, and silence. No survivors. Only a black mark on the desert sand. The report said Orion Vale was dead. His name was written in the records, then erased by time. Arendra did not cry where others could see. She kept the music chip hidden in her chamber. She locked away the memory, the feelings, the name, and she became the queen. The twin moons of Zalaris floated high in the sky. Their soft silver light spread across the desert like a gentle blanket. The night was quiet. Cool winds moved across the sand, whispering old secrets of the stars. Princess Arendra stood alone. On the outer tower of the desert outpost, her dark cloak moved softly in the breeze. She looked at the moons and remembered the night before, the last night she spent with Orion Vale. She could still see his face clearly. His calm eyes, his tired smile, the way he had spoken those words, "If you ever hear my name again, it means I never forgot." At the time, she didn't understand how deeply those words would stay inside her. But now, standing here after so many years, with the memory brought back by that name, everything returned. 15 years ago, the two of them stood by a small, rocky cliff watching the moons rise. Orion had taken off the metal bandage from his arm. His skin had nearly healed. He looked stronger now, ready to return home. But he didn't seem happy, Arendra asked quietly. "Are you afraid to go back?" He shook his head. No, I just don't want this to end." They sat on the rock together, close but not touching. The silence between them felt safe, not awkward. Arendra looked up at the sky and said, "I wish things were different." Orion looked at her. "In another life, maybe." Then he reached into his pocket and took out a small folded paper. It was worn and faded, something from his flight suit. On it was a drawing, just a simple one of a mountain, a moon, and two figures standing side by side. "I drew this during recovery," he said. "It's not much, but it's how I'll remember this place." "And you," Arendra accepted it with quiet hands. "Thank you." She looked at the drawing, then said, "Will you forget me?" Orion laughed softly. "No, even if I wanted to, I couldn't. You're unforgettable." She turned toward him, her voice low. "In my world, we don't show feelings easily. It is seen as weakness." "Then I must be very weak," he replied with a smile that made her laugh. A soft, real laugh. She hadn't laughed like that since childhood. Then came the moment, quiet and powerful. "I will carry your name," she said. "I will keep it inside me always." Orion looked at her with soft eyes. "And I'll carry yours." Before they parted, he placed his hand on his heart. "Princess Arendra, the stars are wide, but I will remember where they brought me." She stepped forward and did something unexpected. She touched her forehead gently to his, a zealotry sign of deep trust. Then she whispered, "Go safely, Orion Vale." Back to the present. The music chip played softly in her chamber. Queen Arendra sat alone, her eyes closed. The piano sounds filled the space like a dream returning to life. She thought of the drawing, the one he gave her. It was still with her, hidden in a private vault. She hadn't opened it in years. Now she felt the urge to see it again. She walked to the wall and pressed her hand against a small square panel. A part of the wall slid open, revealing a metal box. Inside, untouched for 15 years, was the paper drawing. Carefully, she unfolded it. The ink was faded, but the picture was clear enough. Two figures under two moons. She felt a deep warmth in her chest, something she hadn't felt in a long time. A knock at her door broke the moment. One of her aides entered slowly. "Your Majesty," the aide said, "the human team is requesting to continue the talks." Arendra stood, folding the drawing again and placing it close to her robe's inner pocket. Very well, she said. Her voice was steady again, but not cold. As she walked back toward the meeting chamber, she remembered something else. Something she had buried deep. After the shuttle explosion all those years ago, there was no body. Only fire and wreckage. She had accepted the report. She had believed he was gone. But now, after hearing his name again, she wondered, what if he never died? In the meeting chamber, the humans had gathered once more. The Zilari officials were already seated. Ambassador Kale stood respectfully as Queen Arendra entered. She sat in silence for a moment, looking at the human team. Then her eyes stopped on a young human woman standing near the back. The woman looked familiar, but not because of her face. It was something else. The woman stepped forward. Your Majesty, I am Lieutenant Myra Vale. I believe you knew my uncle. Arendra's heart skipped a beat. Your uncle? She asked. Yes, Myra replied. His name was Orion Vale. He disappeared during his mission here many years ago. The room fell quiet again. I never met him, Myra continued, but he sent a small music chip home once. It had your language on it. I grew up listening to that music. Arendra's voice was barely a whisper. He sent it back? Yes, Myra said, just before his ship left. It was the last thing we received before he was declared missing. The Queen leaned back slightly. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair. So the music chip she had kept all these years had a twin, the memory, the message, the promise they were not forgotten. The air inside the meeting room was heavy and quiet. Queen Arendra, the strongest ruler in the Zilari Empire, was staring at the young human officer standing before her. Everyone in the room could feel that something was different now, Lieutenant. Myra Vale stood tall, even though her hands were shaking slightly. She had never spoken directly to an alien queen before. But she had come here for more than peace talks. She had come to learn the truth about her uncle Commander Orion Vale, the man who had vanished long ago. You said your uncle sent a music chip home, Queen Arendra said slowly. Myra nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. It came just before his last mission. He told my mother, his sister, that he had made a friend out here. Someone special. He never said your name, but he said the stars had become quieter because of her. The Queen sat silently for a few seconds. Then she turned toward one of her aides and whispered something. The aide nodded and left the room. I would like to hear that music, the Queen said at last. Myra pulled out a small black chip from her pocket and carefully placed it into a portable speaker. She pressed a button. Soft piano music filled the room. The same gentle melody Orion had once played for Arendra in a desert chamber under twin moons. Her fingers trembled slightly. The memories came rushing back again, his voice, his smile, the way he had spoken her name. Every Zilari in the room was watching their queen. They had never seen her like this, still and open, with sadness in her eyes. Something had changed inside her. When the song ended, Queen Arendra stood. She looked at Myra. Follow me. Myra looked at Ambassador Kale. He nodded quickly, signaling her to go. The two of them left the chamber, followed by two silent royal guards. The Queen led Myra through a long hallway with golden walls and glowing crystal lights. They reached a private room, quiet and simple. Books, star maps, and a large window looking out at space filled the space. Arendra sat on a round chair and pointed for Myra to sit across from her. I never thought I would hear his name again, Arendra said softly. I buried that name. Long ago? Myra said nothing. She waited. He was captured after his ship crashed, the Queen continued. At first, we thought he was just another enemy. But he was different, curious, honest, and dined. She looked out the window. He gave me that same music chip, she added. I still have it. I never told anyone about him. I said he died quickly, but the truth is, I never saw him die. Myra leaned forward. What do you mean? Arendra took a deep breath. His transport ship exploded before leaving our world. They said there were no survivors. I believed it. I had to. But a part of me always wondered. Suddenly the door opened and the Queen's aide returned. In his hands was a small crystal device. He placed it on the table and stepped back. This, the Queen said, pointing to the device, was locked in our deepest archives. It was marked Class Black, never to be opened without my command. She pressed a button on the side. A faint sound filled the room, static at first, then a voice. "This is Commander Orion Vale." I survived the blast. Injured, hiding in the northern mountain caves. I don't know how long I have. If anyone hears this, tell Arendra, the promise still holds. The message ended. Myra's eyes widened. That's him. Arendra closed her eyes. For a moment, her royal mask slipped away. She was no longer a queen. Just a woman who had once known someone rare and real. He was alive, she whispered. Myra stood slowly. Maybe he still is. The queen looked at her sharply. 15 years, no signal since. But maybe, Myra said gently, he stayed hidden. Maybe he was waiting. Arendra stood up. Her voice was stronger now. Then I must go, myself. Go? Myra asked. To that place, the queen said. To where his last signal came from. If he's there, I will find him. Back in the main hall, rumors were already spreading. Something big was happening. The queen had walked out during a major meeting. She had taken a human officer to her private quarters. Now she had returned with new fire in her eyes. I am postponing the peace talks, Arendra announced. I will return, but first I must go on a personal mission. Her ministers tried to speak, but she raised her hand. This is not open for debate. It is a matter of honor. Ambassador Kale stepped forward. May we know the reason? Arendra looked at him, then at Myra. Ask her, she said simply, and then she turned and left the room, inside the ship that would take them to the old northern mountains of Zalaris. Arendra and Myra sat together. The queen no longer wore her heavy royal robes. She was dressed in a simple gray suit, much like the one she had worn as a princess. The ship took off, cutting across the black sky, heading toward the forgotten part of her world. Myra looked at the queen. Do you believe he's still there? Arendra answered, I believe in the promise, and I believe in him. As the stars passed by the window, both of them stayed silent, listening to the music one more time, the melody that had traveled across space, across years, across hearts. The royal shuttle moved silently over the rocky lands of northern Zalaris. Below it, sharp mountains reached toward the sky like stone fingers. The air was cold and dry. Snow fell gently on the peaks. This place was far from cities, far from life, and forgotten by most. Inside the shuttle, Queen Arendra sat near the window, her eyes scanning the ground below. Lieutenant Myra Vale sat beside her, holding a small scanner. They had been flying for hours. The last known signal from Orion. Vale had come from this region 15 years ago. It was a weak signal, broken by time and weather. But it was real, Arendra spoke softly. This place. I have not returned here since that day. It looks the same. Myra glanced at the queen. My uncle might still be here. If he found shelter, maybe he survived. I want to believe that, Arendra said. More than anything, the pilot's voice came through the speaker. Your Majesty, we are approaching the signal point. There's a rocky canyon up ahead, no signs of movement. Shall we land? Yes, Arendra replied. Take us down. The shuttle landed gently on a flat patch of ground. Snowflakes fell on the metal surface. The queen and Myra stepped out, both dressed in warm travel suits. The air was thin but breathable. Ahead of them was a narrow path leading into the canyon. Large boulders stood on both sides, like silent guards. It felt like a place where secrets slept. Myra activated her scanner. A small green light blinked. There's something nearby. Faint energy reading, possibly a small power source. They followed the signal. Step by step, they moved deeper into the canyon. The path was uneven. The wind howled between the rocks. But they didn't stop. After 20 minutes, Myra pointed toward a dark spot ahead. There, she said. See that wall? There's a gap. They moved closer. Behind a curtain of vines and snow-covered stones was a small opening barely large enough to crawl through. Arendra moved first. She dropped to her knees and entered. Inside, the tunnel opened slightly into a narrow cave. It was dry with smooth walls, and quiet, so quiet that even their footsteps echoed. On the far side of the cave was a metal door, half buried in rock. Myra rushed forward. This is human-made. Old tech, emergency shelter design. The Queen placed her hand on the door. So he made it here? Myra worked on the lock. The old panel was rusted but still working. After a few clicks, the door opened with a low hiss. Inside was a small survival shelter. A bed, food packs, a water recycler, and a small table. Dust covered everything, but the lights still worked, blinking weakly in the dark and on the table. A journal. Arindra picked it up. Her hands trembled slightly. The cover said, Orion Vale, Day 1. She opened the first page. I survived the explosion. No one knows I'm alive. My leg is broken. I crawled to the mountains, found an old supply cache. I'll stay hidden until I can send a message. Page after page followed. Notes, thoughts, sketches. His handwriting was strong at first, but it became shaky over time. One page caught her attention. If Arindra ever finds this, I want her to know I kept my promise. I said I wouldn't forget, and I haven't, not one day. Arindra's eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. Myra touched the wall. There's more behind this room, another chamber. My scanner says there's heat. They moved quickly to a back door. It was locked from the inside. Arindra stepped forward. She called out, Orion, if you're there, it's me, Arindra. Silence. She waited. Then a soft mechanical click. The door unlocked and slowly opened. The light inside was dim. A fire burned in a small heater on one side. And sitting beside it, wrapped in a thick blanket, was a man. His beard was gray. His face had wrinkles, but his eyes were the same. Orion Vale. He looked at Arindra. His hands shook slightly. Then a small smile formed on his lips. You remembered the name, he said. Arindra stepped forward slowly. You're alive. I told you, he said, his voice soft but full of warmth. If you ever heard my name again, it meant I never forgot. Myra stood frozen in shock. She had heard stories, seen old pictures, but now her uncle was real, alive, in front of her. Uncle? She whispered. Orion looked at her. His eyes widened slightly. You have her eyes. You must be my sister's daughter. She nodded, smiling through tears. We never stopped looking for you. He stood slowly, leaning on a metal cane. I waited. I sent out signals every year. I didn't know if they would reach anyone. Arindra moved closer and gently took his hand. They reached me. That night, the cave shelter became a place of reunion. Orion told them his story, how he had survived, how he had repaired the old shelter with parts from his wrecked ship, how he had waited year after year. Myra recorded everything. She sent a short message to the shuttle crew. We found him. He's alive. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside, the warmth of old memories and new hope filled the air. Orion looked at the Queen. You've changed, he said. So, have you? She replied. But some things, he said, never change. They shared a quiet moment. The same kind they had once shared under the twin moons, 15 years ago. Morning came slowly to the mountains of Zalaris. A soft pink light rose over the peaks, touching the snow and stone with warmth. For many years, this land had been empty and quiet. But now, after so long, life had returned to it. Inside the small shelter, Queen Arindra sat beside Orion Vale. They both looked out through the narrow cave opening at the rising sun. The silence between them was gentle, filled with peace and memory. Orion held a warm drink in his hand. It's strange, he said. For years I saw this view alone. Now seeing it with you, it feels like waking from a long dream. Arindra smiled softly, and I thought the dream had ended forever. Nearby, Myra Vale was checking her scanner. She smiled as she watched them. For her, it felt like a story had come to life, a story her family had told for years, but no one believed would end this way. Later that day, the rescue team arrived. A larger ship landed near the canyon, and a medical crew stepped out. They carefully helped Orion onto a support chair, checking his health and offering him clean supplies and food. Orion chuckled. You're all 15 years late, one medic laughed. Good thing you stayed home. Queen Arindra stood close as they prepared to lift him onto the ship. You will come with us, back to the capital. You will be honored there. Orion looked up at her. I don't need honor. I just want peace, she nodded. Then peace you shall have. Before stepping aboard, Orion looked back at the cave one last time. This place kept me alive. It was cold, but it was quiet. It gave me time to think. What did you think about? Myra asked. He looked at Arindra. About a promise I made, and whether it would ever matter. Back on Trinity's Grace, the news spread quickly. The Queen has returned with the missing human soldier. Commander Orion Vale was found alive after 15 years. Peace talks restart with a new beginning. Humans and Zalari both gathered near the main hall. There were no more cold looks or angry whispers. Everyone was now curious, hopeful, even. Queen Arindra walked into the chamber with Orion beside her, slowly but proudly. Myra walked behind them, carrying the old journal and the music chip. Symbols of the past that had brought them to this moment. Ambassador Kale stood to greet them. His voice was warm. Your Majesty, Commander Vale, welcome back, Orion smiled. It's been a long time, Ambassador. I think I missed a few meetings, laughter echoed through the hall. For the first time, the air felt light. Queen Arindra stepped forward. I have words to speak, she said. Not as a ruler, but as someone who once made a mistake. The room grew quiet. 15 years ago, I let fear and duty hide a truth. I let the galaxy believe a brave man was gone. But now he has returned, and with him a second chance. She looked across the room at the human and Zalari leaders. Peace is not made only by paper or rules. It is made by people. And sometimes by a simple promise. Then she turned to Orion. You crossed space not with weapons, but with kindness. You stayed behind, not by choice, but with courage. You reminded me of something I had forgotten how to feel. Orion lowered his head humbly. Thank you, Your Majesty. But I only did what any human should. No, she said. You did what many could not. Applause followed. It was soft at first, then grew louder. Even the Zalari ministers, known for their cold behavior, clapped with respect. The peace talks resumed, but now with a new spirit. The humans and Zalari no longer saw each other as enemies or strangers. They had heard a real story, one that had touched hearts. A few days later, in a quiet garden on the station, Arindra and Orion sat together once more. The stars shined above them through the glass ceiling. I still remember that drawing you gave me, she said. The one with the 2 moons and 2 people? I still remember making it, Orion replied. It gave me hope. Arindra reached into her robe and pulled it out, the same folded piece of paper, now kept safe for 15 years. She handed it to him. I kept it, she whispered. Orion held it with both hands. He smiled. I never thought I'd see it again. They sat in silence. Then Orion asked, Do you think peace will last this time? Arindra nodded. It already has. It began the day you said my name. Before returning to Earth, Myra stood alone at the viewing window, looking at the stars. Her uncle joined her. You going back with us? She asked. Orion looked at the stars too. Maybe for a while, but I think my place is here. With her? He smiled. Not just her, with the future we helped build. In the following months, humans and Zalari began new projects together, shared schools, science labs, and music centers. The story of Orion and Arindra was told everywhere. Not as a legend, but as truth. A story of one soldier and one princess who met in the middle of silence and found something more. Many years later, children on Earth and Zalaris read their story in schools. They say that when Queen Arindra heard the name Orion Vale, she froze, not from fear, but from memory. And they say that when he heard her voice again, he smiled, because promises, when made with truth, can live across stars, time, and even silence.